Today we are taking a gander at Thunderbolts 68, which is an issue starring Moonstone, both of them. This is by Fabian Nicieza and Dave Batista, and it ties in with, again, that Captain America omnibus, as this is actually the final ever appearance of the original Moonstone, who I will be calling Neferman for the rest of the video to avoid confusion with the main Moonstone. I'm not going to get too much into the backstory or the exact things that are going on with the Thunderbolts. The main thing was there was another team, a Nazi Thunderbolts team. They have been defeated by now. Baron Zero killed his dad. I think Fister blew one of them up. But a member is still at large, and it is obviously Neferman. And we open with the two Moonstumps kissing. This was an ongoing thing with Moonstump and Neferman. What happened was, in the early 80s, she manipulated Neferman into a position where she could steal his powers for herself. Then Neferman, he got repowered up in the 90s, and he wanted revenge on her, but she kept seducing him into not carrying out said revenge. So we get to Kurt Busey, who killed Neferman off pointlessly because Kurt Busey is not a clever man. He failed to see that the character serves a fantastic purpose of being a nemesis of sorts to one of the main characters in the Thunderbolts series. Neferman, he was in comics in the 90s. So yeah, kill him off to bring back a character from the 70s that Kurt Busey remembers instead. Even though Neferman himself debuted in the 70s too. Well, he had too much of a 90s stink on him for super fanboy Kurt Busey. Here it is funny because Fabian Nicieza clearly demonstrates how wrong Kurt Busey was to kill the character off. There is heaps of potential for stuff to do with Moonstone and her character with regards to this chump from her past. Moonchump, that could be his name. Basically, he has an obsession with her. He has a best complicated feelings for her. He hates her and he loves her. And this bit at the start is actually just him having a daydream. Him having a psycho fantasy while he beats a random woman to death. I didn't think making Neferman psychotic and crazy was what I had in mind when I said there was a lot more to do with the character in Thunderbolts. But I respect this because it is given Neferman more thought than a fraudulent fanboy like Kurt Busey ever did. So the Thunderbolts, they are called in to investigate the murder of the woman. By the way, I do recognise the irony of lambasting Kurt Busey and somehow still claiming to be a fan of Thunderbolts. I didn't like Kurt Busey's Thunderbolts. It is the usual things. He pretends he invented these characters and he gave them personalities. But what he actually did was take some fairly established characters like Moonstone and Atlas Man and Baron Zero and disregarded most of their established characters beforehand, or wrote them off as not mattering somehow, because it didn't quite fit with his idea of them, and because then he could again say he created them and that they didn't have personalities before he came along. Kurt Busey, he needs to be seen as a creator of these sorts of things, because all he really does is destroy and undo things to make himself seem like a creator. One thing about him is that he believes he should be credited as the creator of Song Girl on Wikipedia instead of Marky Mark J, Daniel LaRusso, and Jorge Perez. Kurt Busey, he didn't create the character any more than Christopher Clairvoyant created Wolfman, or Hank Miller created Daredevil. He is annoyed that he is not receiving acknowledgement on Wikipedia for something that technically he doesn't deserve. That is what matters to him. Without Song Girl, without Moonstone, without Thunderbolts, Kurt Busey's actual creations begin and end with Silver Claw. And if you actually look at it, the issue which he cites as being the issue that re-established and proves that he created the character by virtue of reinterpreting her, it is actually scripted by and co-plotted by Roy Sternman, which he never mentions. He wants the credit for himself, and he doesn't really care or ever say Martin Bagels, the artist, deserves credit too. So Fabian Nicieza came on board after Kurt Busey was done with the series, having not really taken it anywhere after his first story arc was over. And Fabian Nicieza does so much more with these characters and the book's themes. He really explores these people and how they personally define the concept of hero. They each have very well explored ideas and what they think counts as their own redemption. Whereas with Kurt Busey, it was a binary option. They were either one of the good ones or one of the bad ones, with one character being in the middle to make it seem like it wasn't that. Moonstone, she quickly deduces the culprit of the murder as being Neferman, and she thinks that it is the result of his infatuation with her. And we get a rather unglamorous fight here with Neferman and Atlas Woman. Yeah, it's confusing. I will not get into the specifics. Atlas Man and his girlfriend in a wheelie chair became one entity for a while. There is some nice stuff done with Moonstone, maybe or maybe not, feeling guilty about how she had used and abused Neferman, and how she might think this is a second chance to do right by So our main scene is this sting operation of sorts, where they want to draw Neferman out by Moonstone posing as bait. Neferman obviously falls for it, hook, line and sinker. You'd even get a name like Moonchump for now. She does what she always does, which is seduce him into forgetting about everything else. And then she uses getting close to him as a means to tear his magic alien moon gem out of his body, and she absorbs it into herself again, just like she did the first time. So now Moonstone is empowered by twice the moon gems that she was before, and she gets a pretty lousy costume. But Moonstone's costumes, barring her original, were always kinda shite, until Mike Diddy Dardo Jerk redesigned the character. So now Moonstone is twice as powerful, and there is nothing the other Thunderbolts can really do about that, beyond having to cautiously accept it. And rather than end with a cynical take on Moonstone as someone who hasn't matured or grown in this series, we end with, first, we find out that she did Neferman a favour both times because the moon gem was not compatible with his body, and it was partially responsible for his personality shifts and his craziness. Not a big fan of that reveal. Too convenient a way to exonerate and even validate Moonstone for this thing in her past. The good bit is she offers him an olive branch. She gives him the choice of what comes next for him. He can be a prisoner, he can get psychiatric help, he can try and be productive, or he can do what he has always done, which is to be bitter and obsessed. We never learn what his choice is. I always remember this as being a good issue, but I also always remember it as being a lot better than it is. I'm not saying it is bad, but I think the story had a lot more to explore, and we only really touched on the very basics while resolving a thing from Moonstone's past. I'll still recommend it, and if anyone gets hung up about me not explaining how the Thunderbolts are split up into two teams and how they are on different Earths, or how Songirl's team has a butch lesbian on it, I don't think any of that is required to appreciate the core story here. So my final rating is a 7 thumbs up